Are you planning on, are you looking for a half Ironman in the upper New York area this year that's not MDOT, really good price and all the rest, but really well run by triathletes? Well, this is the video for you because in it, we're going to talk about the Tupperman Tinman Triathlon. Um, and we're going to go through all you need to know for the swim, the bike, the run to let you know that this is a race that you should definitely try out. So, how are we going to let you know that? Little intro. My name is Steven Moody, or Coach Steve. I am an Ironman U certified coach, but more recently a YouTuber who I do lots of race reviews of cool half distance and full distance races around the world. But Stephen, you haven't done all these races. That's correct. This is what I do. I reach out and I connect with really the local experts, people who've done the races, and I ask all the questions you guys need to know. Is it wetsuit legal? Do we use a TT bike? What's the run like? So that's how we do it. And this is how you get the info. So I've got Coach Sean.luitjens, again, I hope you got that name right, and
Oh,
who we've connected with via kind of our training group. And he is going to talk us through a little bit about himself first, a little bit about the race, and then we're going to dive into the details of the swim, the bike, and run. Sean, how are you getting on? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah, I'm good. Up in New England, and I think I was telling you before, we're finally out in shorts and short sleeves, which is kind of cool. It's a big time of year when that happens. So yeah, I've been triathlete since we'll call it last millennium. I think I'm working on my 37th year, something like that.
Nice.
Long time, which means I'm not young. As we go, but I'm a developer and kind of SaaS business software person by day. But like you, I think triathlon nerd that you can't escape from. Love the process, love racing, and I don't know, 15 years ago started coaching as well. So carry a small book of athletes, that range from basically entry level to MDOT, and usually kind of the ones I really love are either newbies or the ones that are stepping up in distance. I find that super fun. Probably just like the athletes do as they go with meta performance. And so yeah, when I saw your post about different cool races, Tupper is one that I've done a bunch just because I think it's a really cool race, and it's not on the MDOT radar.
Yeah, no, and again, and we're all about if it's a good race, if it's one you recommend to your athletes, we're going to talk about it. So when exactly is this race during the year? Just a key one to get people.
Yep. So it's end of June. This year's June 28th. It usually runs somewhere 3 to 5 weeks actually before Placid, which is kind of cool if you're doing Placid and want to work your way through and end kind of the peak phase, on a high, depending if you want to train through. I know we might talk about the price, or you mentioned it earlier. It's pretty cost effective. So it is kind of a cost effective, train through race, et cetera. And logistically they make it really easy to kind of go up, hit the race. And then when I've been doing some MDOTs, it's on a Saturday. So sometimes you can also make a weekend out of it and grab some miles the day after, depending how smoked you are after racing on Saturday.
Yeah, no, and that's a brilliant option in terms of actually, I said for someone any training for Lake Placid, if you get that sort of distance out, duration out from your full, it's perfect timing. You test out your nutrition, you test out your setup, and also you get a little bit of a confidence boost, and then you're sort of going, a couple more build weeks, and then you're tapering with that
Yep.
knowledge in the back. Brilliant. Okay, so let's dive into the detail. And again, excuse the awful puns I will use. We'll start off with the swim course. Now we've got, it looks like simple enough. Was it horseshoe shaped swim? Can you talk us
Yep.
through it a little?
Yeah, it's so usually the wind actually, so based on I think the way you're oriented is north is pointing up. Am I missing it somewhere? The wind is going to be either at your face or out of the south. So a couple of things with it in the morning, which means the sun's also as you finish and come home. So it's super simple. They also have a sprint and Olympic at the time. So there's different color buoys. They make it super easy. They head out before you when you're doing the half. So you have a little bit of traffic on the way back, but usually you've got either a little bit of some waves in your face heading out, or you have waves coming from your left, depending which side you breathe on. You hit the turn, and then when you come back, you generally have the sun just smack right in your face. And so one of the things I've told athletes that are going up there is take a little walk over in the morning to the finish and try to pick out those items, they have, it's well marked. There's a fair number of buoys, but as everybody knows, the person in the boat setting out 4 buoys doesn't have the face, the sun in their face, the waves, and dealing with other swimmers. So pick out a couple of items to orient yourself with about how far you are from the other buoys, because the sun is right in your face as you go. But last year was pretty wicked. Actually, it was temperature was around 60s, crazy wind, huge waves. And one of the cool things with the local races is they were offering people the morning of to defer down to Olympic distance, or, defer, which is kind of, crazy. Is pretty windy.
Okay, great. And in terms of the water quality, as in like good crystal clear water, is it typically wetsuit legal? What can people expect?
Yeah, so actually jokingly, for those who know me, I don't usually travel to non-wetsuit legal races. So if I'm talking to you about a race, there's a wetsuit involved. Yeah, so it's wetsuit, it's the upper Adirondack, so it's almost guaranteed to be wetsuit legal. I don't know that, I don't think it ever has not been wetsuit legal. I would say the temperatures tend to be in the lower 70s, even in June, maybe upper 60s. Water quality is good. I mean, in the upper Adirondacks, water's all good. There can be some weeds, as you tool around some of the buoys and what have you, but it's great water up there.
Cool. And how, again, like typically with the M dot races, we talk that there's a rolling swim start, just because it's the Ironman
Yep.
playbook. But how do these guys get you? Are you a mass start? Is it a
Yep.
beach start? How's that work?
Yeah, it's a rolling start off of basically a boat ramp. So your boat ramp in and a boat ramp out, basically a beach in, I think, a boat ramp out. Um, and it's, self-seed. So, mob of people and everyone self-seeds, and you're responsible for kind of figuring out where you go. They don't have the, times, right? They don't have 25, 30,
Yeah.
35, stands. So you kind of just have to survey the crowd and figure out where you want to be in the crowd.
No, and by the way, that's also a top tip. Even if I am dot, like no matter what the number says, or start talking to people. As in, like, I was at Ironman Texas there at the weekend, and some lady came up, and I was standing in the 70-minute corral, and I was trying to blag a little bit, and so going, what time are you going to swim? And I said, probably around 80 minutes. And she looked at me disgusted and just went straight away from me and went, okay, she knows what she's doing. She's looking for a faster swim guy than me. But again,
Yeah.
yeah, having that chat as in like, what did you swim last half? I said, oh, I came out of the water 45 minutes ago. That's a little bit faster than me, but if I stay on his feet, I'm coming out in 45 minutes, hopefully. So that's a great tip.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the times, to your point, I think they worked for about 1 year, because then coaches and athletes started being, do I want to be in front and fight the battle only on
yes.
3 fronts? Do I want to swim by people and find feet? Do I only want to be passing people and not have to deal? And so everyone started overthinking those times. So I think that's great advice, Stephen, that kind of, I've never done that. Ask some people like, hey, where do you think you're going to be? Is swim time.
Yeah, no, I'm the annoying chat. I'm the annoying chatty guy at the races. All my other friends go into this zone. I'm chatting to people, particularly any ladies that will talk to me, and just having a bit of fun with it. And because it's the way I deal with my nerves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also worked it to my advantage. Okay, so looks like wetsuit legal swim, simple enough turns. The sun can be in your eyes, so yes, probably tinted goggles would be useful. And we have a exit here onto that boat ramp. Do you have people coming? Do they have wetsuit strippers or peelers,
No,
as we
no
American call?
strippers. Yeah, no strippers. And actually, on the diagram here, I don't know if you have a transition one, but the transition's 100 yards away. So it's really tight. So you can take your wetsuit off there, or you can do the usual run to transition and do everything, next to your bike.
Cool. And they operate what they would call a traditional transition, not like an Ironman one with the bags and all that. So you set up everything beside your
Yeah,
bike and
yeah.
all.
Show up, set up. You got your own stuff. They do rack by number, so it's organized. It's not, we can talk about when you set up in the morning and whether you come the day before, how early you have to get there and things like that. They do register by number, which I really like, because you don't have to worry about getting there, first and then waiting 2 hours before the race for transition. Plenty of bike space in the racks, so they do have it so that you're not right on top of the next cat next to you, and have 6 inches of space to do transition. You got plenty of room.
Fantastic. Great. Okay, cool. And the transition itself, is there when you're running from the exit up to, is it on grass or is it on a carpet, or how they have that
Yeah,
set up?
grass then carpet, a little bit of the blacktop mix. But again, it's super I mean, basically you come out of the water, run, 10, 20 yards, cross a sidewalk, run into transition, which is right there. It's really close.
Cool, excellent. Right, what's your top tip for a fast transition in T1? What do you say to your athletes?
For me, it's always practice, practice, practice. So, just make sure that everything's done in the same order all the time. I've seen so many athletes come in and they're like, well, I'm going to wait and see. Is that, or even little things like, am I sock, shoe, or am I sock, sock, shoe, shoe? When am I putting my helmet on? Like, so, depending how many matches you burnt in the swim, you're coming out of the water, a little oxygen debt, you just stood up. In this case, actually, you don't have time like a lot of people. I don't know. I know you mentioned you have someone talking about North Carolina. In North Carolina, you've got about a 5-minute jaunt to think about what's going to happen in T1. Here, you've got about 20 seconds. And so if you haven't practiced it before, you're going to be just wasting time in there, and dropping stuff, putting stuff wherever.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's also a single transition, isn't it? As in the
It
T1 is
is.
equal to T2.
It is. Yep.
So again, that makes it easy as well. And again, making sure you walk it beforehand. I think was it one of the other coaches, Coach Wendy, she also know your ins, know your outs in terms of like
Yeah.
see it beforehand where you're getting out, and just walk from that point to transition. Instead, if it's only a short distance, but at least you know. And again, having that
Yeah.
stationary object like a tree or a bike or like a portaloo where you can know where your bike's beside, etc. And again, know where the mount line is. Okay, cool. All right. Anything else on the swim before we talk about the bike course?
No, pretty straightforward.
Nice, which we like. Okay, and now we're on to the bike course. Okay, so we have obviously 56 miles for our standard half distance. Talk to us about the bike course. Is it hilly? Is there what's the road surface like? What's the
Road surface is good. There is traffic, so they don't completely close the roads. Wide shoulder, so tons of room to go. Shoulders are pretty clean. There's always that little fissure, I think, on all roads when they're closed, where the white line is. That always tends to be where the road cracks. So I always, tell athletes stay left or right of that. Um, you will, depending how, where you race. Again, the sprint and Olympic go out the same course to start. And it's just good to know that because you've got some athletes of differing abilities as you head out. And the sprint will turn around at like mile 6 and then obviously around mile 12 or whatever it is, the Olympic distance athletes will turn off. The bigger hills are at the start. So you've got about 8 or 10 miles, or so of some hills that now I talk in Strava colors or element colors or Zwift colors. So you have mostly green and yellow climbs. You've got a couple little red kickers that are there on the way out, and then you start to open up into really these long kind of slow rollers. So you'll wind between the gears. A lot of us would consider it like a big ring only, course. I'd put it that way. The thing that's interesting too is you look at it, it's kind of this half moon shape going from east to west. Last year you had this huge crosswind the whole time, and anyone who watches the tour knows crosswind sucks. And so you had a lot of crosswind or again out of the west. So depending on the date and what kind of rider you are, you're going to get tailwind back. If it's out of the south, you're going to get this weird wind where you can tell from like mile 40 to 50 can actually be kind of a headwind back in your face. And you thought you had headwind going out because it's in a crescent shape. And there's one aid station at the turnaround. So mile 28, you're grabbing whatever you want. Really well done. It's actually like a rest area spot. So you actually kind of swing in off the highway. You're not doing the infamous, look out for cars while you're trying to grab water bottles, whatever. You swing into a nice area, stop or not, and then roll back. Again, really great roads. It's really pretty as you roll through a lot of this stuff. Probably, I'm a little biased, so I ride, road bike with aero bars because I live in the mountains in Berkshire Mountains. I think it's a hard choice on a course like this, whether you want to roll, road bike or tri bike. I think wheel selection, depending on the weather, with all the crosswinds and depending how experienced you are, there's a lot of these long rolling hills. So you've got this, if you're on a disc and you're not super experienced and you're getting crosswinds and you're going, up them at 7 and down them at 37 or 40, kind of like Placid. It's great practice for Placid. You've got these long rollers, like how comfortable are you? Or you're going to end up giving up the aero advantage by sitting up because you're freaked out with the disc.
Okay. So you go for a road bike with TT bars and probably not a disc wheel if you had it. That's what I'm hearing?
I think you can ride a disc. I think this isn't one that hurts you. So I chose last year with a high wind. So that bevy of choices, right? So I chose no disc and I went with like a Flow 90 because of the wind and the crosswinds. And I knew I went a little bit lighter, but also I knew with the weather, I just wasn't going to be sitting as air. I mean, the winds were 30 to 35 mile an hour winds. So,
Wow.
Kona-ish, type things where you're like, I don't really want to be worried about, I don't want the mental drag of being worried about being spun around all the time. If it's nice out, the disc could be fine. And the roads are great. So you don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah. Okay, no, cool. And you said there's the one aid station, and that was it. What do they kind of typically have there? Is it just your ISO drink and
Yeah,
bananas
ISO
and
drink, water, bananas. They don't always have bars. You can, if you want on the way out, there is, I guess I almost forgot. On the way out at the Olympic turnaround, there is an aid station there for the Olympic athletes that you can do, but I don't know that many half athletes are looking at aid station at mile 12, as a plan.
yeah. So it does sound like the key thing here is make sure you are fairly well self-sufficient as well. If you've
Yeah.
got like that's one thing with the M dot, they do have maid stations fairly well spaced out. But if you've got
Yes.
your one shot, make sure you've got lots of fuel on board because key of these 70.3 races is keeping on top of your carbohydrate
Yep.
intake and keeping on top of your fluids, etc. Um, weather-wise, what would typically be the weather, or is it warm? Is it? We've talked about the wind. What type of sort of
So it's
temperature
funny,
have you seen it?
last year, like I said, was 60. So the New England, northeast of the US last year was 60. And I think the year before I did it, it was 92. And so, I would say the average is probably going to be in the 70s. Really cool mornings. You're up in the Adirondack Mountains. So it is cool morning. So it's kind of one of those interesting, am I wearing arm warmers on the bike as I get going in gloves and tucking them away? The old cut off the ends of the socks and use them as arm warmers and ditch them as the sun comes up, at the aid station, so I don't have to cart them around. Like you've got a little bit of that, but the weather can be a little bit all over. But again, they were prepared last year, and in the warm, they're prepared. And to your point, you're kind of self-sufficient. That's a good way to put it. I've told athletes going there, if you have a specific thing, or if they're training for Ironman, you have a specific thing, put it in your pocket, and take the time and almost treat it as practice for a drop bag, for
Yeah.
your special needs bag, and basically roll in, mix your own drink with water, take the 30 seconds, get your nutrition right, because you can't, you're right, Ironman's every 10 miles. So you can't miss this one because it's another 28-mile slog back, back as you go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not as again, a key thing, as we'll discuss there as well, you're not only fueling for the bike in the last 20, 30 miles, sorry, the last 20 miles, you're still fueling for the half marathon ahead. So you don't want to be carbo depleting yourself too much,
Yeah.
or glycogen depleting yourself. Okay, so looks like a nice out and back route, a little bit of a challenging course, but I think that also gives you a good sense of reward once you get there. Anything else on the bike course, Sean, before we head on to the run?
No, they do a good job of letting you know a mile or two to go. And I think as the day goes on, there is some traffic. I would call it magic drafting, as people talk about having the roads open. So, there's a little bit extra cars, but that's not so bad as you go back in. But they do a great job with police at all this, anywhere where there's crossroads and at the turn.
Fantastic. And again, single transition. So we're rolling back into T2. Um, we will talk a bit about the run course here. That's our transition two. Um, again, you'll be rolling in. You'll be there's no bike catchers, I presume. As I said, you have to rack your own bike and get your own stuff together,
Yep.
like real triathletes. None of this
Yep.
bike catching messing.
Yeah, that's right. Old school, bring your bike in, rack it, throw your stuff in your pile, get your run stuff on, whatever you brought that's what you're responsible for.
Brilliant. And okay, I've asked you your top. What was your top T2 tip or mantra that you give your guys when they're preparing for their first Tupper Tin Man?
Yeah, I think just making sure, I actually, my top run tip you stole is the last 5 miles of the bike on this course are down to rolling because they're up on the way out, right? Is make sure that you're drinking, if you're going to take that gel or whatever you have to top off, just like you would do maybe a gel 15 minutes before the swim, you're doing your gel 15, 20 minutes before the run. And then you're rolling in without, how much time are you going to make up in the last 2 minutes? You actually start to spin yourself out, think through transition. Again, there's not a like some of them dots where you drop and someone magically takes your bike and you hope that they're working. I always joke, you hope that they work for the race because you just gave them your bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have, 3-4 minutes to run and think about what you're going to do. You basically dismount and you are in T2 in 30 feet. And so, what's the order I have? And then I always I get in and out as fast as I can, knowing moving's better. So all I do is swap shoes. And then I grab everything else and put it on as you go. Nothing is required to have until you start, until you go. So sunglasses, hat, race belt, all that stuff, I just grab in my hand and I just start dealing with while I'm out there because I'm on the move. And in my mind, I didn't waste time and I've got a fresh start. I got money in the bank if I have to walk an aid station in my head, in my athlete's head. I usually tell them, like, that's money in the bank for you to walk the right aid station at the right time. You've already saved that amount of time on the move versus standing still in T2.
Yeah, no, again, we have a phrase in the squad that nothing good happens in T2. It's like, don't sit down,
That's
don't
great.
stretch things. As I said, once the shoes are on, you can move. Or
Yeah.
another one of the guys said at the weekend, he goes like, the only thing that was it, the only things that you can find in T2 are other people's problems. Leave them all behind and just get in, get out, and start moving. And as you said, like you can put your cap on as you're jogging, you can get a gel in when you're jogging, and that's 200 meters, 300 meters, and then you go, actually, yeah, I'm already near mile one, like, so definitely
Well,
cool.
if you think about it, like for me, it's, if you spend 15 seconds extra in transition, think about how long it takes to walk an aid station that you're actually moving. You can probably walk 2 tight aid stations for that 15 seconds and actually drink the whole water, get a whole gel, all for free, right? Like, and so, you're right. Like, nothing good happens in there. I'm going to probably plagiarize that. Nothing good happens in T2. That's actually pretty spot on.
No, absolutely. Okay, so we're out in the run course. It looks there's a fair amount to it turn wise. What can people expect road surface wise? Is it hilly? What sort of surface are they running on?
Yeah,
Um,
this is one of the reasons I really love the course. So you leave on kind of a concrete piece and you leave and you start to head out and you cross the road. There are some kicker hills as you start. So as you can see, right by mile one, as you're climbing up mile one, that's actually right before that, from mile like half to one is a pretty tough grind. Also from mile one to kind of almost two is a little bit of a grind part way up that. So to your point earlier about getting your basically, I'll be a little blunt. I tell my athletes, you have to get your shit together at the end of the bike because the run course here, it comes at you about the time you just start to get your legs under you, 3/8 of a mile in, it gets real pretty fast. And so if you're cooked, you don't have your nutrition, you're behind, you're just going to get further behind. That section from where mile four is out to three, somewhere in there, it turns to a dirt road, which is kind of a cool surface. And there's an aid station out at the end. They have several aid stations. Actually, it's pretty well done, I think, for aid stations out there as you go. And obviously, it's pretty well trafficked on that front half. That first 6 miles is the same as the Olympic distance
oh, right.
race. And you'll see some of the sprint folks out there. And so, you know how it is in these small local races. Sometimes it gets lonely, right?
Yeah.
Depending where you are in the race. It's not at the beginning as you go, and you can see people come out. And so you end up with this kind of more climbing than not as you go out. You hit the turnaround about mile three, which, again, it's the Olympic distance, so the distance makes shape. You get a little more down than up. And then, as you can tell, right about mile 5.5, as you're coming back, any friends you're running with the Olympic will tell you goodbye, and you head out on this rail trail. And the rail trail is a lot of dirt, actually. Really soft surface, really pretty, kind of goes behind some neighborhoods, and has got some shade. And then you go out to this section out where you take a right, where it looks like mile 11. You actually take a right before that mark, and head
Oh yeah.
out around this lake. That climb up to mile 9, that's real. There's a real climb right there. There's an aid station at the top, which is, I think is great that they have the aid station there. It's always a little shitty because it seems like it takes forever to get there because you're running up a steeper hill. Um, and then you loop back around, and in that neighborhood past mile 10, right at about mile 10, there's another kicker hill that kind of smacks you in the face. But once you get past there, you jump back on the rail trail. You can see where you're kind of on the same track as people coming out on the rail trail. You can see people. And then it's basically flattish. And then once you hit mile 12, it's flat to downhill to the finish. And definitely the last half mile, you run back down that hill we talked about earlier. That was steep. And then you take a right, and actually you run back on the grass. You can see how there's the 2 red lines there. You actually take a turn and don't go back from whence you came. You actually run and finish down this grass chutes, which I know they love for all the right reasons, and I've joked with them over the years. Yeah, running down the grass, if it's wet or bumpy or mushy on smoked legs after you just came downhill is kind of a cruel joke. Yeah, it's like, but they do a great job with the finish line that's there. So it's a challenging run. It really does have some hills right at the beginning. Those hills at mile 8 and 10 as you go are there, but then, you can smell the barn from there. You're running back down the rail trail, which is kind of cool, and you can let it go. Last year, I will say, it rained so much. There was water, basically standing water on the rail trail. And
Wow.
so, you just run through the water, like there's nowhere to hide.
Nice. So plenty of hill training in your preparation for this run course. But it does sound
Yeah,
epic.
if you're doing Placid, it's a great course. If you're doing some of the more challenging, type of events, I mean, if you're not, it's even better. But if you're doing some of the challenging ones, there is a solid amount of elevation. And again, on the run, and while the bike has just really the one aid station, if you're doing the half, on the run, they're every couple miles. They're really well done. Plenty of stuff, like you meant, the ISO drinks, the gel, water. If you got your own special thing, bring it. But there's plenty of stuff, plenty of people. The one thing I would tell you to mentally prepare for in that back half is, the way you could see at mile 7, you kind of turn and do kind of a loop. You are with who, yeah, from 7 to 11, basically. When you take that right, there's a little bit of the out and back between like 8.5 and 9.5, but you're kind of out there in that quiet silence, with your thoughts and your decision making
Questioning
of
your life
signing up.
choices moment.
Yes, yeah, questioning life, your decision making is being questioned at that point in time. But then when you turn and hit that main road and come back, it's awesome. So,
No, it sounds like it looks like a great local course run by kind of local guys. As you said that, and they know how to bring it. Cool. Righty-ho, a little bit about the actual event itself. So the it's still open for registration, is that right?
yep, I don't know that they completely fill, if they have.
Cool.
But
And what
yeah,
we'll do is we'll
it's
put the
still
link
open,
up.
and yeah, for $200, it's compared to the M dots and everything else to slide it into your schedule. It's great. I would say lodging up in Tupper Lake. Many people probably haven't heard of Tupper Lake. It is not a major metro. There's a couple of hotels in town. Saranac Lake is not far, which people who've talked about Placid know very well, being to the west of Placid and to the east of Tupper. And then if you like to camp and do whatever, we do it every year. We go up and there's a couple of amazing campgrounds, like many amazing campgrounds within 10, 15 minutes of the start to just kind of go hang out and make a weekend out of it.
Sounds awesome. And what I'll do is I'll put the link to the race entry site in the comments below so people can find it. After hearing what Sean's got to say, I'm sure you'll be keen to hit that link and sign up. The morning of race day, as in you can what time did the actually open up transition normally? Is it well early, and what time's the race the first starter?
Yeah, I think 8:30 is the race. 8 or 8:30. Now I'd have to go the senior moment right here. So a couple of things. You can sign in the day before. So like half a mile from the race start, there's a hockey rink, and that's where they hold it just in case the weather's not great. You can go get all your, check-in registration, do whatever you need to do, get your numbers so that race morning you can just, buy body mark if you like. You want to go old school, and just go to
I missed the body
transition.
marking. I thought that was great.
I know. I'm kind of like, I don't know. Is it, it always rubs off anyway, with a wetsuit. But yeah, you got to do anyone who's doing their first events at any distance, you have to get body marked. It's like, it's tradition,
It's a
right? You
rite of
got to do it.
passage. You got to have that,
You
or else
got to
the race
have
does
it.
not count.
No, and they need to make better markers so they don't rub off. So everyone, you remember back in the day, I swear they had better markers that didn't come off. And so for 2 weeks, you were tattooed with your number.
Yeah, yeah. And that's it. You did want it to come off, but it was still there. The little grain of it. You go like, I'm
The
still number
tan line.
49 in someone's eyes.
Yeah, you got the tan line, right? Yeah.
That's it.
So actually they have plenty of parking. So even with all 3 races in the morning, you park right on that site. It's the Tupper Lake Park. Transition access is super easy. Only athletes in there type of thing. But it's super easy to get to. They open the transition plenty early, but again, you have a rack spot dedicated to you, and there's plenty of time, to get in. And then, athletes jump in the water. They do go sprint Oli half, which is a little different because, you compress a little bit outside, and on the courses, but I think that's better than going the opposite way where, you start to swim back through the sprint swimmers and you all really compress in T1. So they do a good job with that. And yeah, I don't know, what's the next question?
Yeah. So time of the first 70, the half distance guys entering the water, probably around 8:30, you said. Is it?
Yeah, around 8:30. Yep.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Alrighty. I think that's the only questions I have for the I think that's covered a lot of it. You've covered the car parking, accommodation, how easy it's to get to, the price that's a fraction of an M dot, yet you get all the race practice you need at half distance for Lake Placid if you still want to do that M dot experience. And also you're
Yep.
giving back to the triathlon community by racing these sort of races rather than the big corporate. I'm sorry, Ironman, I
I'll
still love
add,
you.
they 1 year I was sick, so things, not a knock on MDOT because it's much bigger, but they do a couple of things. They do allow you to swap distance if for some reason you're semi-injured or want to do a shorter distance. Obviously, they don't refund that difference, but they allow you to do that even the day before. And then 1 year I was really sick, a Crohn's athlete, and was having a flare, and they just let me push to the next year.
Right.
And that's just, which is mind blowing in the world of MDOT stuff. And so just a really cool, easily accessible, email them, they get back to you really quick with questions, special needs, stuff like that. So, like you said, that real small local feel type of race at a reasonable point.
Brilliant. No, that sounds great. All right. Okay, so just before we do some thanks here, just as you said, if you're looking for a coach who knows this course and you're looking for someone actually probably who will get you right ready for Lake Placid too, from the sounds of it, there's Sean's email in the details. Make sure I'll drop in the comments as well. Ping him on, and was it even have a chat? As you said, he's a very knowledgeable guy, good coach, good guy to have in your corner. Make sure you chat to him, or again, even, and if you have any questions on the actual race itself, throw them in the comments below. Myself and Sean will pick them up. But all we're gonna do now is, Sean, thank you ever so much for your time. I'm kind of intrigued by this race. Again, I must admit, when I do come across the pond, I tend to target some M dot races, but this sounds like a great little run race, and again, without any of the hassle, the drama of having to arrive the day before and
Yeah.
bags. And hey, if someone's going to put body marking on me and I can pretend it as my first again, I'm all for it. But
Yeah, and if anyone's going, I'll be there this year, so I'll put my money where my mouth is. I go up there. I try to make it as much as it'll fit into the schedules every year to head on up.
yeah, and I think that it's from the sounds of it, they know what they're doing, as in they take care of the athletes, and that's probably why you've been going so many years. You go, you know what? Good guys, great race experience. Even when you said the weather was inclement last year, as in they adapted and they ran a bloody good race. So, Sean, I am going to say just thank you ever so much for your time. It's been lovely chatting to you, lovely connecting. You've unearthed a gem, which of a race from which, again, I wouldn't have really heard of. So again, hopefully a lot of people view this and they sign up and they all race you. I hope it doesn't mean that you get finished further than your age group because of this. But then if it is, it's you're only yourself to blame.
That's
Um,
right. That's right. I'll take that. I'll take that though. I'm always good for a Dunkin' Donuts wager. So anyone's going, let me know. I'm in.
Fantastic. Any last words to the viewers?
No, this is great. I really appreciate it, Stephen. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Cool. All right, we will leave it there, guys. Get on this race. This looks like a winner. As I said, perfect training for Lake Placid. Perfect if you're set in without any of the drama of M dot and all the rest. As in, what a great way to break your middle distance or half distance duck. Get on it and let us know how you get on the comments.